Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal, the architect of a horrific genocide against the Palestinian people.
5 words into his video and he's already lying. Netanyahu isn't a war criminal and is innocent until proven guilty, even in the eyes of the ICC. Shouldn't the mayor of New York City know the law? And a fun fact for Zoran, there's no international court which has ruled that Israel is committing a genocide. The reality is Zoran's having a bad day because he found out he cannot arrest Netanyahu at the UN General Assembly. So he decided to make a Palestinian propaganda video instead, filled with lies like this.
He is responsible for the killing of more than 73,000 people.
And this.
For the countless people he starved as he blocked food and humanitarian aid from reaching them.
And this one.
For the gunning down of hundreds of aid workers and journalists.
Really? How convenient that you included the tens of thousands of Hamas terrorists in your figure of casualties from Gaza, legal combatants in a war launched by Hamas. And starvation and blocking aid, the UN itself is literally reporting that Hamas is responsible for blocking aid to Gazans. And killing aid workers, like this one who took part in the kidnapping of Yonatan Samarano on October 7th. Or maybe journalists like this one, a Hamas terrorist, of which there are dozens. But this one is especially disingenuous.
All as we, as Americans, pay for the bombs that do the killing.
Israel spent more than $1 billion on defense spending from the U.S. on top of the aid package, which is already reinvested in the U.S. economy. Mamdani's flat out lying to drum up and manufacture a fanatic, obsessive Jew hatred that's sweeping the country and costing lives. This man is dangerous and despises everything that America is supposed to stand for. That's why he's prioritizing the ICC over the laws of the United States of America, when the U.S. and Israel both are not a party to the ICC.
Benjamin Netanyahu should be arrested and tried for his crimes. It is clear that we do not have the independent legal authority to enforce this warrant. The federal government, however, does, and I call on them to join the ICC and execute this warrant.
Funny how Mamdani never has anything to say about any other country or conflict. He's made at least 10 statements about Israel-related conflicts since becoming mayor and 0 on any other country or conflict. And all of this from a local mayor whose job has nothing to do with foreign relations. This bizarre fascination with Israel and Jews is 100% a subversive campaign by anti-American, anti-democratic elements, both within and outside the United States. If you're supporting Mamdani in any way, you're falling for it.
Amen. And that whole court thing is all just made up, Islamist and leftist.
Why did Mamdani really make this video? I'm going to explain this to you with such crystal clear clarity that you're going to see the entire thing completely differently by the end of it. First of all, this has nothing to do with the ICC. The US is not a signatory to the Rome Statute. It has no authority, neither local government nor federal government, to enforce an arrest warrant. Okay, so if it isn't about the ICC, is it about humanity and justice at a broader level? No. Because at that same UN conference, Mamdani talked about arresting Netanyahu at, guess how many representatives of totalitarian and terrorist regimes are planning on attending? For example, the Islamic Republic, who killed in 2 days as many civilians as in a 2-year war, intentionally targeted and massacred. Not to mention Sudan, from Myanmar, from China, regimes that have committed the worst atrocities. Why no word? Here's what you have to understand. To belong to any tribe, you must accept that tribe's mythology. Mamdani belongs to a tribe of Western activists whose mythology is explicitly anti-America, anti-Israel, anti-capitalism. Next question, where did that mythology come from? It was crafted by the Soviet Union through desinformatia, disinformation. These disinformation campaigns were created during the Cold War. What was the purpose? Well, if the Soviet Union wanted to destroy the Western world, how was it going to do it? Not by actually attacking the Western world, but by attacking the Western imagination. Desinformatia was designed to subvert the Western imagination to perceiving itself as the greatest evil. Why? Because once it perceived itself as the greatest evil, outside forces no longer had to destroy it, it would begin to slowly commit suicide. Oh, and by the way, the Soviet Union actually studied the Jewish history of scapegoatism, which is why anti-Semitism was one of its main desinformatia campaigns and why it intentionally targeted Israel, because they knew how easy it would be to scapegoat the Jewish nation. Once subverted, the person would enter a state of unconsciousness. In this state of unconsciousness, they would come to see this mythology, this Cold War mythology, as reality. That is why they can only see US and Israeli aggression and quite literally delete the worst atrocities committed by socialist and Islamist groups. That's why Mamdani only speaks about the US and Israel. He is reinforcing the myth of a unique moral evil. If you were to actually recognize universal human dignity, the humanity of Israelis, Palestinians, Iranians, Lebanese, Yemenis, everybody, you would have to acknowledge their killers. But if you acknowledged their killers, it would shatter the mythology. This isn't about humanity. It is about protecting a myth that was designed to subvert and is subverting an entire nation of Americans.
Amen. Now here's a Muslim that's on Israel's side. Here we go. And against Mamdani.
My name is Lord. I'm an 18 years old Arab Muslim Israeli. And let me tell you why you're wrong. I'm an Arab Muslim woman, and there is nowhere I would rather live in the entire Middle East than in Israel. In your statement, you never once said the word Hamas. You never said October 7th. You erased the day a terror army murdered and kidnapped its way across my country. And then you stood there and called my country the criminal. Hamas and its backers in Iran are responsible for this war, not Israel. But you won't say a word because you do not believe Israel has the right to exist. But I do. We all do. You've called my country an apartheid state. At the end of October, I'm going to vote in the same election with the same rights as every Jewish and Christian citizen of this country. I grew up with Jewish neighbors and built my own company here. My future is here. Nobody here ever let my religion or my gender to stop me from doing anything, which would have been very different for me in the rest of the Middle East. You call this horrific war a genocide. Genocide is an intentional destruction of a people, and it is exactly what Hamas swore to do to us on October 7th. And the number you quoted, you take Hamas numbers at face value, completely disregarding the fact that Hamas terrorizes us, Palestinians in Gaza and elsewhere daily. Extremists are the enemy, not Israel. You blame every death on Israel and not one on the terror army that made sure this is exactly what this war would look like. So it makes me wonder, Mr. Mayor, who's your speech for? Because you're not speaking for me, you're not speaking for the Arab citizen of Israel, you're not speaking for the Arab nations in the region making peace with Israel. And you're definitely not speaking for the Palestinians in Gaza who so desperately want a better future free from Hamas. You look at the one country in the Middle East where an Arab Muslim girl can stand up disagreeing with her own government and be safe. And you paint that country a monster. That speech wasn't for us. We want peace. We live and practice peace here every single day. That's the Middle East that's actually coming. Muslims, Jews, and Christians living on the same streets, working at the same hospitals, celebrating holidays together. Living. It's not.
I'll try not to type much.
Simple here, Mr. Mayor, but it's beautiful, and it's my home. And you, Mr. Mayor, you are not helping. You don't speak for me, you never did, and you never will. The people of Israel, including the over 20% Arabs living here,
now remember, she's Muslim.
Live in peace.
She's Muslim, lives in peace there. All right, this is about Mark Carney until some more people get on, then I'll get to the main topic. And then economics with him, Trojan horse.
Back in January, Prime Minister Carney of Canada stood at the podium of Davos and said this: "The old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy." They gave him a standing ovation, but Carney wasn't mourning globalization. He was putting lipstick on a pig. Today, the U.S. trade war with Canada is quickly becoming the major showdown over who controls the new global economic system. President Trump has intervened with hammer and tong. He clearly knows there's no other option but to escalate and win. It's like with Iran. Either the situation is transformed no matter what it takes, or the moment will have been squandered. Because this isn't about trade or the mullahs. This is about global power for the coming centuries. And today we're facing a Trojan horse not from Canada or London, but from Beijing, while Europe lays prostrate to the idols of immigration and climate change. And contrary to what the communist utopians might think, this is a recipe for war, not peace. But this is not a fight with China per se. The globalists will happily tolerate another Cold War, East versus West, massive military spending, and a complete justification for control and surveillance. The real war is between two systems. One is globalization, the one Western corporations and the City of London have been fully on board with for decades. The other system is the American system, which creates a culture of freedom rather than totalitarian control. I'm Mike Stager, and I've been fighting to revive the American system for over 25 years. If you want more content like this, hit like and subscribe, and sign up for the Promethean Action newsletter in the description. In this video, we're going to address the ongoing fight with Canada, the Trojan horse of economic control, and most importantly, how President Trump and his administration are building a new global system based on the most important advancement in human culture over the last 500 years. For 50 years, Canada had the best deal on earth, unlimited access to the largest, richest market in human history. All they had to do was build and prosper. Instead, they've become a globalist blob. Look at the numbers. Canada is in a major recession. For over a decade, Canada papered over a stalling economy by importing people faster than any nation on earth. The growth was never real. It was just higher consumption. Canada is currently euthanizing any sense of national identity. And the COVID lockdowns throughout the entire Commonwealth betrayed a deeper cultural decay of Chinese-style totalitarian control, the so-called China model. Then there's energy. Canada sits on one of the greatest energy and resource endowments on the planet. And for decades, Ottawa's answer has been to strangle its most productive sector in the name of net zero. Meanwhile, their overgrown and unmanaged forests now burn every summer and choke American cities with smoke worse than the smog in Beijing. And now out west, an entire province, Alberta, where they still build and drill, is so fed up they're voting this October to leave Canada entirely. We'll see what happens. So to address these northern delusions, last year
It's going to be a close vote. It almost happened in the Quebec area.
Implemented tariffs on steel, aluminum, and automotive to protect our industrial base. Canada didn't adapt or acknowledge economic reality. Instead, it, like Beijing, lashed out with retaliatory tariffs. That's why this week the administration dropped another 50% tariffs on a wide range of Canadian goods. But this is just what the news fixates on. The real story is far more structural.
Everyone complains about his tariffs, but Canada's got a lot of it's matching the tariffs they already have on the other side. Plus, they also have some goods that they won't let into the country at all. Some stuff, period.
For 30 years, under NAFTA and now the USMCA, Canada could count on tariff-free access to the American market. The guarantee was the whole foundation of the Canadian liberal economy. So Carney asked to extend the deal. So did Mexico. But Washington finally said no. On July 1st, the United States did not renew the USMCA. It's still there,
because they had a good deal and they kept adding tariffs on their side.
But now every year there will be a review. And at the president's choosing during that review, it could be gone within 6 months. Access to the American market is now in a state of limbo and could quickly vanish. Strip away the guaranteed pipeline into the American market, and all Canada is left with is maple syrup and potash. That's it. All of Canada's trade deals with other countries are based on access to the U.S. market. That's their golden goose. And Canada is now staring into a bleak economic winter. But Beijing is more than willing to take advantage of Canada's state of delusion. Carney has already opened the door for Chinese EVs. Under a limited quota, Chinese automakers are lining up at the northern gate. If the American people don't begin to understand
Okay, so China will make a lot of money. How does Canada make money out of that? They don't.
and the importance of tariffs, then Chinese cars will quickly destroy what's left of the American manufacturing and automotive sectors. If NAFTA was a bad storm, this would be a Category
See, we are the target to take down.
5 hurricane. But to understand the problem, you have to understand how China actually operates. Consider Tesla. In 2017, Tesla was the undisputed king of the electric car. It was the company the whole world was chasing. So it built its first factory in Shanghai to gain access to that Chinese market. Beijing rolled out the red carpet. They discounted prime industrial land. There was no Chinese partner required. They even offered access to the subsidies normally reserved only for Chinese companies. Elon Musk thought he'd conquered the largest car market on Earth. But by 2023, 6 years later, the most advanced electric vehicle manufacturing on the planet, the tooling, the supply chain, the production know-how, was now all sitting inside China, staffed by Chinese engineers and feeding Chinese manufacturer suppliers. They didn't steal Tesla's technology in the dark. They didn't have to. Tesla carried it through the gate and set it up on Chinese soil brick by brick, and in doing so, trained the entire Chinese EV army, the engineers, the suppliers, the managers, who then walked out the door and built the competition. And the competition is now won. Tesla, the company that once outsold every EV maker in the world, has watched its China market share collapse to around 4%, while BYD, which a decade ago was a punchline for cheap knockoffs, is now the largest EV producer on Earth. The same has happened to all major car producers. Volkswagen, General Motors, Ford, and Toyota were told explicitly, you want access to 1 billion Chinese consumers? Then you have to hand over your technology. Volkswagen, once the king of China, is now in collapse. But the Beijing model is more than just taking advantage of naive Western companies. China currently produces more than double the Chinese market for EVs. So to maintain employment and stabilize their Chinese communist regime, the government directly subsidizes exports and undercuts all international competitors. Today, China's government subsidizes exports at every level: cheaper electricity, cheaper land, discounted loans, and even direct subsidies for exports to be dumped on the global market. Once they shut down the competition and gain a monopoly, then Chinese companies can raise prices. Only by creating a new international system of trade can we solve this problem, which brings us to the continent that welcomed the Trojan horse as its new savior, Europe. If you want to know where Carney's Canada ends up, just look across the Atlantic. Start with Germany, the industrial heart of the continent. Volkswagen is the largest car producer in Europe, making 25% of all cars in Europe. The company is now cutting 35,000 German jobs and eyeing multiple plant closures on German soil for the first time in its history, with as many as 100,000 job cuts worldwide. Let's say that again. The single most powerful manufacturer in Europe is literally being gutted. Chinese cars now make up almost 10% of all cars sold in Europe, and analysts expect that to hit 16% in 5 years. Then look at Britain, the dying mother of the Commonwealth. Chinese brands now sell 10% of all new cars in Britain. The UK alone has become BYD's single largest overseas market, and their rate of growth is hyperbolic. In 1 year, the company went from 9,000 British sales to over 50,000, a nearly 6-fold increase. And here's how bad it is. The historic Mini plant in Oxford, England, put its electric production on hold, while BMW turned down a £60 million government check to keep that work in Britain. Why? Because they're moving electric Mini production to a joint venture in China instead. A British icon is now going to be built in China, while Britain buys more Chinese cars than any nation outside China. The EU and the UK, like Canada, for decades have papered over a hollowing economy with mass immigration and called the rising headcount growth because of consumption. It's the globalist model. Import the demand while you export the production. And a country that consumes but no longer builds is a country that is dying. And this is a disease. It's civilizational euthanasia. Europe has been selling even its critical infrastructure to China. The Piraeus port in Athens, the closest deep
It's politicians that are sold out.
water port in Europe after transiting the Suez Canal, has been purchased by China's COSCO as part of their Belt and Road project. The Chinese president called this port the head of the dragon to expand Chinese exports and dominate the European market. And this is the future Mark Carney wants us to accept. And the threat to the United States is very, very real. If we don't stick with Trump and his new system of tariffs and protection, we'll be eaten alive. Consider Mexico, which has imported more than 500,000 Chinese vehicles just last year. It's now Beijing's single largest export market for cars on Earth. The Alliance for American Manufacturing said this was a potential extinction-level event for the U.S. auto industry. Or look at Brazil. BYD just opened its largest factory outside of Asia in that country. And while they were building it, Brazilian labor inspectors found that the Chinese construction workers were living in conditions the authorities called analogous to slavery. That's the globalization model in one image. But it's not inevitable, nor even likely. President Trump is creating the solution. And this is where we want to lift our eyes from the cars and the ports and the factories and see the whole board. Because there are two systems standing before the world, and they are now at war for the future of the planet. The first system is the one we've been watching all video. Call it globalization, call it free trade, but one nation becomes the factory. Every other nation becomes a market. The factory subsidizes its champions, floods the world, bankrupts every honest competitor, and once the competition is dead, it owns the supply chain, it owns the ports, and it owns you. It's empire. It's precisely the same game the British ran for 2 centuries. Extract the raw materials, monopolize the manufacturing, and keep the colony dependent and under control. Beijing didn't invent this. They just picked up the crown that London had set down. While the UK was bled dry and their empire dismantled, the city of London apparently had to have another host. And the American story is clear. We already fought this battle once, and we won. And once we became the dominant world power after World War II, we began to establish an entirely new system of trade, a system premised on nation states, not colonies or corporations, a global system based on the American system. Go back to July 1944, a small town in the mountains of New Hampshire, a resort called Bretton Woods. 44 nations gathered to build the post-war economic order. Nearly half of the nations in attendance were from the Western Hemisphere because of America's Monroe Doctrine to defend the rights of sovereign nations. And the Bretton Woods system was built based on the American experience of national development. Our intent was to build a system that empowers nations to develop, that lets any nation build the energy and industry it needs, rather than worship at the temples of Pachamama or bankers' debt. Bretton Woods was the American system going global, and the imperialists, free traders, and globalists hated it. This wasn't free trade and central bankers' control. This was fair and free development, stable money, credit for industrialization, and nations rising together instead of one empire feeding on the rest. And then we threw it all away. In 1971, the anchor was cut, and over the next 50 years, it evolved into this globalization madness. We took a system built to help nations build, and we turned it into a machine to tear out their industry and ship it all to the cheapest labor. And the cheapest labor every single time was China. The post-war Bretton Woods didn't take hold in part because of the Cold War, but primarily because of interests centered in the City of London, which preferred a global system run by central banks rather than nations. But this time we have the leverage and 50 years of globalization's wreckage to fix. President Trump is the first leader in 2 generations to revive this idea, and his entire trade and foreign policy is oriented towards this one goal. Just listen to the men running his economy. Before he was ever Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent said this in an interview: "We're in the midst of a great realignment, a Bretton Woods realignment coming in terms of global policy, global trade." And he said, "I'd like to be a part of it." The man now running the Treasury Department told the world before he even had the job that he wanted to be an architect of a new Bretton Woods. And the former chairman of Trump's Council of Economic Advisors, Stephen Miran, wrote a blueprint in 2024 called A 21st Century Version of a Multilateral Currency Agreement. Miran says it should be held at Mar-a-Lago and be called the Mar-a-Lago Accord, echoing Bretton Woods, a new global system based on American principles of growth, development, and a culture of freedom. So consider what all of this means. We're ending NAFTA. We're putting pressure on the EU to man up. We're bringing the Middle East into the global economic picture. We're reasserting the Monroe Doctrine as the Don Roe Doctrine for the Western Hemisphere. And we're taking a strong stand against Beijing. We're also reshoring our industry, expanding global energy supply, and tearing up the free trade gospel. None of this is chaos. It's the deliberate demolition of one system, the free trade globalization system, and the foundation of another, a new Bretton Woods, a system built, once again, so that nations can build. Today, 2 systems stand before the world. one of paupers and one of producers, one that turns every country into consumers with a social credit score, and the other that treats the nation state as the greatest instrument humanity has ever built for lifting up its own people. And that's this overview. If you want to help revive the principle of 76, hit that like, subscribe.
Yeah, basically what they're desperately trying to do is get control, and they thought they had it all. And we put a roadblock in it for now. In any case, I don't know. All right. Let's go. I was going to go to some humor here.
As long as the machine rules California, nothing will ever change.
The homelessness problem continues to worsen in California.
Gas prices in the state have reached a record high.
Another local favorite has closed down in Santa Monica.
Things have just gotten so expensive. I don't know if we can continue living here. We just want someone, anyone, to hear us.
Okay, we've got to figure out this governor thing. I'd do it forever, but it's my turn to be president. Bring in the machine.
See the nonprofits there, NGOs, they're making it out like bandits, not paying any taxes on that crap either.
The Democratic nominee is Javier Becerra.
Huh? The Biden guy who lost all those kids?
Can't be right. Run it again.
Becerra.
Becerra, welcome. The machine picked you.
The machine?
Thing we created to make sure nothing ever changes. As long as you submit to the machine, you don't have to do anything.
Nothing? I can do that.
I believe all the things that Newsom believed. 4 more years. 4 more years.
So, what do you think? It went well?
That was worse than...
Who else is tired of the highest taxes in the country? The highest gas prices in the country? The worst homelessness in the country? This is our state, not the machines! That's what we're fighting for!
Your taxes are going up. Do not resist.
Nobody's ever stood up to the machine before.
It's time to take California back!
Can we get Swalwell back? Run it again.
I thought that was a pretty good hit. I think I'm going to keep it and play it again in the future. All right, I got a few of these clips of the Elon Musk stuff, you know. Here's the humor one. Or maybe I'll play that one last. I'll do the 2 regular ones. No, I'll do the humor one. Let's go with the humor one.
I think a lot more people actually like me than don't.
Don't re-wish with the media. I tell you. Don't re-wish. All right, here's Zero died from the Cubs.
You don't buy the idea that anybody, to put it really crudely and simply, any kid in Africa died because of the suddenness with which...
Zero.
I just don't think that's right. I just don't think... I've had people reporting in Africa who...
How many NGOs are there that could step in? Because bear in mind, it happened quickly. And there are literally tens of thousands of NGOs.
Not everyone functions as fast as you do. If funding is cut off for antiretrovirals overnight and it just stops, then people will die when they don't have access to them. And it just...
only if they cannot get funding for that. But the Gates Foundation has $50 billion. What about them? What about any one of a number of organizations? What about
well, in
Mackenzie
lots of these
Bezos'
countries, USAID...
Mackenzie, whatever her last name is, used to be Bezos, gave $50 billion.
USAID is so they can line their pockets and keep themselves in power and donate to their own campaigns through Act Blue, with fake names.
Dollars. What about that?
But let's be practical. In many of these countries, USAID was the biggest funder. But I don't want to have an
USAID
argument
was a
about
political
this.
organization.
It may also have been that, but it was the biggest funder of healthcare systems. So I'm very
Biggest
sure that there
funder
was
of regime change.
and there may well be benefits from having.
Yeah, they were overthrowing a lot of South American countries, make them socialists. That's what they were doing.
Also, USAID funding was not stopped. It was moved to the State Department.
It was stopped. There were huge numbers of things shut down in Africa that were
No, there were
health
claims
related.
of this. These claims are false. They're nonsense, absolute nonsense. But when funding is stopped for fraudulent organizations or for something, do you think they're going to say, well, please keep funding the fraud? Or do you think they're going to come up with a sad story that sounds sympathetic in order to get the funding restored? Obviously, it will be the latter.
Don't have too much fun skating there, Tammy.
And that's exactly what they did. But zero.
I'm trying not to type much.
Died because of Doge.
That's what I.
Hey, Marianne.
Zero.
I actually have a lot of sympathy for the change of the aid regime that the U.S. under the Trump administration has precipitated. However, I think the pace and the suddenness with which it happened will almost certainly,
so the Democrats could stay in power. That's why,
have caused unnecessary suffering and deaths. And I think both of those can be true.
I think that's totally false.
The DNC's hurting for money. The communists there, the Democratic Socialist Party, is the one that's getting all the money.
Okay, well,
and obviously false, because there are the amount of funding we're talking about is far less than what can be done, than what can be supported via private, via foundations like the Gates Foundation or Mackenzie Bezos's foundation. She's given away tens of billions of dollars. The Gates Foundation has tens of billions of dollars. They are capable of acting very quickly. And if they didn't, I would say they're equally responsible.
I see. Okay.
Obviously.
All right.
Zero.
Hey, John, welcome back.
Died because of Doge. Zero.
Here's another clip from him. These overlap a little.
No doubt that there's a lot of waste in the U.S. government. I think probably
much worse than anyone could possibly imagine.
But the way, I think there is, it is a fair criticism that the way you shut down a whole bunch of programs probably, in fact, certainly caused unnecessary suffering. I mean,
no.
You don't buy that at all?
How many billions of dollars just, they don't know where it went. It went to transgender crap.
It caused a lot of complaining.
You don't buy the idea that anybody, to put it really crudely and simply, any kid in Africa died because of the suddenness with which...
Zero.
I just don't think that's right.
Overlap on these clips a little bit.
Just don't think... I've had people reporting in Africa who...
How many NGOs are there that could step in? Because bear in mind, it was...
Okay, John.
It happened quickly, and there are literally tens of thousands of NGOs.
Yeah, Tammy, I plan on being on tomorrow. I have a graduation thing to go to, but I'm planning to be home by 8 p.m. I'm planning to be on 8 p.m. Eastern, just 7 your time. So I plan to be on. Unless it runs long, I should be on.
Not everyone functions as fast as you do. If funding is cut off for antiretrovirals overnight and it just stops, then people will die when they don't have access to them. And it just...
only if they cannot get funding for that. But the Gates Foundation has $50 billion. What about them? What about any one of a number of organizations? What about
well, in lots of these countries, USAID...
Mackenzie, whatever her last name is, used to be Bezos, gave $50 billion. What about that?
But, let's be practical. In many of these countries, USAID was the biggest funder. But I don't want to have an argument.
USAID was a political organization.
It may also have been that, but it was the biggest funder of healthcare systems. So I'm very
biggest
sure
funder
that there was
of regime change.
And these countries can start doing for themselves a little bit more.
There may well be benefits from having changed
also,
the system.
USAID funding was not stopped. It was moved to the State Department.
Oh, that's okay.
It was stopped. There were huge...
Whatever, whenever you can. You can always watch them on the rerun too, Tammy. Well, you can watch them later.
Numbers of things shut down in Africa that were
there were claims
related.
of this. These claims are false. They're
See, there is some
nonsense.
overlap here.
And absolute nonsense. But obviously, just for when funding is stopped for fraudulent organizations or for something, do you think they're going to say, well, please keep funding the fraud? Or do you think they're going to come up with a sad story that sounds sympathetic in order
I'm trying not to type
to get the funding restored?
much.
Obviously, it will be the latter. And that's exactly what they did. But zero died because of
that's
Doge.
what I would take issue with.
Zero.
I think I actually have a lot of sympathy for the change of the aid regime that the US under the Trump administration has precipitated. However, I think the pace and the suddenness with which it happened will almost certainly
They all should have been cut years ago.
Have caused unnecessary suffering and deaths. And I think both of those can be true.
I think that's totally false.
Okay. Well,
and obviously false because there are the amount of funding we're talking about.
This is why we're so much in debt.
Is far less than what can be done, than what can be supported via private, via foundations like the Gates Foundation or Mackenzie Bezos's foundation. She's given away tens of billions of dollars. The Gates Foundation has tens of billions of dollars. They are capable of acting very quickly. And if they didn't, I would say they're equally responsible.
I see. Okay.
Obviously.
Still don't believe it. It's a total commie there. All right, here's my friend Karen Kennedy.
The caption of this video says, this happened just now. ICE picked up this kid. Well, first of all, this is not a kid. This is a grown-ass human. And his mother is in the background. You can hear her screaming and losing her freaking shit because, of course, her son's getting dragged off, whatever. I get that part. I wouldn't want that either. However, when I had some issues, the system did not give a crap about my plight as an American citizen. So me watching politicians and local officials and the entire crank far leftist faction give so much concern to illegal foreign nationals who knew they were illegal when they came in here, especially over the last 4 years, nauseates me. So we'll watch this for a bit and then I'll chime in.
They always act like they're dying, don't they?
What happened? Oh my God, what's going on?
So that's him over there on the ground.
I don't know what part of being here illegal they don't understand.
They are restraining him, as they should. And she's screaming in Spanish. That's a grown ass dude. That's not a kid.
I got another clip to play too about a court order, so Trump's going to be able to get them out of here even quicker and more of them.
Yeah.
I mean a judgment.
That whole complex is probably full of illegal.
Yeah, he did say mama. He was saying his mama. He's here illegally.
So why did I not pick her ass up? I don't know. Not really clear.
That's crazy. That's ridiculous. I don't know.
No, it's not ridiculous. It's what needs to happen. She ain't done freaking out again.
That's what happens when you bring in like 10 million or more people within 4 years.
Ridiculous, man. You guys should be ashamed, bro.
No, you shouldn't. Shut up. Mind your own damn business. Whoa. I don't know if it's on.
Yep. That's the one.
Oh, she runs back up. Oh, God. Oh, she don't throw the shoes. Throw the shoes. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. I got to pick them up, too. At least they should. They should have picked your ass up anyway. Yep. Okay. Get it out. Get it out. Okay. Yeah. Yep. You get the gist. See, this is something that needs to happen all the time. And Greg Bovino, who's I think he was CBP, head of CBP for a while, and all the heat with Minneapolis and that. So he retired. I really wish he hadn't, but here we are. So he's just posted about this morning. There need to be more of these instances, and I'm going to qualify my statement. For 4 years straight, remember, as American citizens, we watched helplessly every single day as thousands of these people from countries across the planet, over 160 countries, came here through Mexico every freaking day. They flew them in on flights overnight. They brought them here. They came here on boats. They came here through the Darien Gap. They came here through the Rio Grande. Constant, every day, 20,000.
Biden bought a bunch of tickets and was flying in, paying for private jets to get them in here faster.
30,000, 40,000 a day, 500,000 a month. Bro, we had to tolerate that. But you know what? After a while, it kind of became not really normalized, but it's something that we just came to expect. And it started after the apathy and the feeling of helplessness. Then we started to say, uh-oh, we got to get Trump back in office. We can't have this. We cannot let another Democrat get in office because this will get worse. We'll have 40 billion people and there's only 7 billion on planet Earth. But we'll have just more people than we can ever handle. It'll destroy the country. So it put a fire under us, and we worked our ass off to get that man back in office so that the northern and southern borders could be completely hermetically sealed like they are now. That's what I voted for. You see these detentions, you see them ICE detaining this dude. I voted for that, bro. But just like we, the citizens, had to become accustomed to thousands and thousands and thousands of them coming in here every day, every week, every month, and every year for 4 years, they're going to have to get used to these ICE raids and these detentions. It's going to have to start, like Greg Bovino said, it's going to have to be so damn many of them that they just like, oh, well, I guess this is just the way it is. And
you're seeing less and less of them out there trying to block the ICE people. They're running out of money to do it because a lot of these people were paid for. You're still seeing some. There's still nutcakes that are doing it, but the paid ones are pretty much at the to the roadside. They're kicked to the curb because they're running out of money.
There's not going to be freakouts because there won't be time to be freakouts. There's just going to be, oh, well, they're here, so whatever. Just like we had to get used to their crap with dumping the illegal alien invasion into this country. Yes, MUFON would be happy that we have solved the mystery. We were invaded by aliens. So they have to get to the point that they're like, oh, well, this is just life. This is how it is. But it's got to be more ICE agents, more detentions, and they need to see this more and more and more. It's too many one-offs. It's too many one-offs. So the crank part left get to say, oh, they're doing this. Oh, look. Oh my God, they're taking this. They're mask ICE agents. They won't have time. See what I'm saying? It's got to be mass deportations. It's the only way.
Amen. She's right on that. All right, here's Benny Johnson came up with this one. They just got a big ruling that helps Trump get them out of here a lot quicker. And all these ones that have these orders for like 2028, 29, 30, they're all moving these cases up. He put more judges in. to move these up. Like they're going to be getting them done within the next month or two, and they'll be deporting them a lot faster. Watch this. You'll like this.
I am in favor of mass deportations. I've always been in favor of mass deportations. However, some people don't have the stomach for them, and it's been a very tough road to try and get them done, given the stickiness of the courts and some dumb decisions by our Supreme Court. But boy, howdy, has the Trump administration, I think, finally cracked the code here and has won some remarkable major decisions in circuit courts for the movement and behavior of illegals and some massive fines that could be accrued by these people if they don't self-deport. Very interesting. It seems to be the strategy of the administration is to simply get them to go home to make life untenable in America. Then you don't, if they choose to go home, then you don't have to worry about the courts at all, right? You don't have to worry about what Sparkle Spookman or Amy Coney Barrett thinks about it all. They just leave. And maybe that's the way to do it. Make life untenable. And that's exactly what's happening here. Look at this. Full Fifth Circuit has issued an extraordinary precedential order, making it clear that illegal aliens do not have a constitutional right to roam free in the United States during their removal proceedings. Whoa. So this is saying that if you are facing a removal proceeding, which effectively all illegals are facing removal proceedings in this under this administration, can this administration get them up and out of the country? That's the question. This says that you're not allowed to just like go drive around or go hang out. I mean, this effectively means that you could just be incarcerated the entire time. I mean, just whoa. This is crazy. So the appellant's opposition motion denied as unnecessary. Okay, so this is effectively saying, let's go ahead and read right here. Okay. Here's the court order. This is saying that illegals, outstanding work, says Harmeet Dillon. How many of you fully understand the implications of this? The federal government does know exactly where most of the illegals in this country are currently residing. They've always known these people are getting federal benefits. And they're all about to be told that they're no longer going to be allowed to just roam around inside of the country. They are about to be ordered to surrender themselves to authorities at a specific location. Federal benefits being turned off and they're being debanked will provide incentives to show up at the required location and surrender. Assuming several million don't comply, they're still cut off from federal aid and will have to leave their current location because that's where the federal database shows they are living. So no more free federal support structure. They have to find a new place to live. They have nowhere to hide this time. They're going to self-deport. Self-deportations are going to skyrocket. Get in here. This is awesome news. It's crazy that this is even a thing where we have to overcome in the first place. A major order upholding the rule of law. Self-deportations are soon to skyrocket. Bam. Another major critical victory of President Trump, the American people, and the rule of law. Wow. Great news.
You know, most of them don't go to those hearings. They skip them. And so if they skip them, they can just go pick them up and arrest them and then send them back. Because they're not going to show up anyways.
Rogue judges and their bogus
hey, Colin.
Injunctions can shove it. Ladies and gentlemen, it continues. DHS just issued $84 billion in fines to illegals under the Trump administration. They issued 103,000 fines since Trump returned to office.
You see, because of us cutting their welfare benefits, Marianne, that a lot of them are breaking into Canada. I showed a video on that the other day. They're going from America up to Canada because of the welfare benefits. That's why, especially the Muslim ones.
Charging illegals $1,000 a day for those who refuse to self-deport. That's more than they're getting in benefits. Our message is clear: leave now or face consequences. This comes on the heels of Clarence Thomas saying aliens have no equal protection rights against the federal government.
You know, if the Democrats get back in power, they're going to load up the Supreme Court with a lot of leftists, and the borders will be wide open.
In the most baller ruling ever from our Supreme Court, aliens have no equal protection rights against the federal government because they're not a citizen of our government. They're not bound by our laws. They cannot appeal to our laws. So haters are out here saying, so do we send them to collections under their stolen social security numbers or what? No, you debank them. You debank them. And that's the next thing the administration is doing. Taking away banking services for people that are not American citizens. Rick Scott introduced.
Well, there's a bunch going back. I showed some videos. I got another video after this that once they stop getting the welfare, they stop having all the extra kids too. And a lot of them have gone back too.
Bill to double civil penalties for illegal
It's all the free stuff that's keep getting them here and keeping them here.
aliens. 1 year of immigration enforcement under the Trump administration. This is from the Deportation Data Project. These are libs, right, from Berkeley that hate America. This is what they have to say. The story of immigration enforcement in the first year and second year of the Trump administration is a drastic increase in interior immigration enforcement that occurs in the United States far from the border. It surged to 5 times the historic precedent. You can see here in the graph.
And he's got about 4 million followers or something like that on the platform. 4 to 5 million followers. It's pretty popular. I'm surprised you haven't heard about Benny Johnson.
Whoa. Look at that. I want more deportations. I really do. But the signs are good. ICE arrests have surged in July, reaching all-time high under Trump. Highest monthly arrest date for total achieved. It's the first month of Mullen, and now it is skyrocketing. Trump ain't doing nothing. No mass deportations. You can see here the literal mass deportations happening. Massive volume. Trump's second term, foreign assistance has dropped off sharply. Total adjusted inflation foreign assistance down to 0, effectively. Mass immigration enforcement are here. Over 356,000 ICE deportations, averaging 1,200 a day. You got to get those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers. Whatever. It's fine. I mean, listen, it's better than it's been in my lifetime. That's a fact. Roughly 1/3 of the 1 million deportations being touted by the Trump administration appear to be recent border crossers who returned back home. So that's troubling. And again, leads to a major question, which is, are you going to be able to deliver on mass deportations? Tom Homan was just asked this.
On day one, we prioritize public safety threats first. Another misconception. Oh, Homan only cares about the criminals. No, I don't. Just because you prioritize the biggest public safety threats doesn't mean we forget about everybody else. If you look at the numbers, just as yesterday, it's about 62% criminal and 38% non-criminal. I like that. I think it's better than saying 38% criminal and 62%. I would rather have more criminals than non-criminals, but the numbers shows we're almost even on criminals and non-criminals. We're arresting everybody we find.
Okay. Well, keep going. Now, the debanking stuff is huge. Making sure that you make life untenable, that you can't move throughout the United States of America, that you're not allowed the kind of liberties and freedoms that American citizens are granted, that's the point. The tables were turned entirely inverted, where foreigners who are here to parasitically take from our nation without paying anything in, not in blood, not in taxes, not in anything, right? Like all the rest of our ancestors build this country, die for this country, fight for this country, pay into the social services of this country. These people show up and simply
you'd be kicked out.
Get immediately on welfare and get paid, I don't know, like something like $5,000-$6,000 a month if they're able to scam the system, maybe much more.
Pretty much any country on this earth.
If you're a Somali scammer, anyway, the point is that they get more rights in America than a rightly born, native-born American, which this country is our birthright. And so flipping those tables is the single most important thing that will instigate mass deportation. If you give the alien the rights that they deserve, which is no rights, right? Because this is what Clarence Thomas has ruled is the law of the land. Doesn't mean I don't think they're human beings at all. That's against my religion. It means that they had more rights than American citizens and were doing better than American citizens. That needs to be reversed. So I should have freedom of movement in my country. If you're an illegal criminal, you shouldn't have freedom of movement in this country. That's not how we treat criminals. If somebody murders someone, you don't just let them go. And this is now they're finally treating them like criminals. When you're a criminal, when you commit a crime, you vacate, invalidate some of your so-called rights.
And that's exactly what this is exactly how you should treat illegal immigrants. Oh, it's so nice to see. Finally, you got to get those numbers up, boys. Get those numbers up. Let me know what you think about how the president's doing on the topic of immigration. It's your boy Benny. Like, Sharon.
No, we got to win midterms. Otherwise, that's going to go. They'll pass stuff in the House or put it in some spending bill that'll change things. You know, that kind of crap. All right, now, we've been worried about Islam coming into these countries. There's someone that broke down, and they're looking at the numbers. Once you cut away the welfare and all the freebies for coming in, some of these Islam people are going back, and they're having a lot less kids, too. And so the numbers are starting to balance out on birth rates and stuff, too. Watch this. I found this very interesting. You'll find it interesting, too, if you watch the whole thing here. It's about 20 minutes, but...
We got another amazing video here from the Fall of Nations. We've been loving their videos recently. It's a video about still think Islam is taking over. Watch this before you speak again. Let's take a look. YouTube channel is, once again, I want to give them a shout out because we've been reacting to a lot of their content recently. Fall of Nations. Make sure that you give them an old subscribe and let's take a look.
Everyone said it was a matter of time. Soaring birth rates, mass migration, a cultural takeover already in motion. The West would bend, Europe would bow, and Islam would inherit the future. That story is falling apart. Not slowly, not theoretically. Right now, in government data, in migration filings, in surveys, inside the heartlands of the faith itself. 2 walls have gone up. One in the West, one inside the Muslim world.
Yep.
And the unstoppable
Big
force
wall.
just hit both of them. Let's start with Europe, because the policy reversals there are impossible to ignore. And nowhere is the U-turn sharper than in Sweden, the country that once branded itself a humanitarian superpower. In 2015, at the height of the Euro...
It's just starting to happen there. No more needs to happen over there. You need more politicians to be voted out, but they're starting to get scared of the people voting them out.
European migration crisis, Sweden took in 162,877 asylum applications in a single year, the largest annual number since the country started keeping records. Welfare systems strained, integration stalled, concerns about gang violence and segregated neighborhoods exploded into a national debate that had previously been considered too sensitive to even hold. For years, the Swedish establishment had treated criticism of the migration model as borderline taboo. Anyone raising concerns about integration, parallel communities, or the long-term cost of the welfare state risked being branded extremist. Then the data caught up. Suburb after suburb in Stockholm, Malmö, and Gothenburg developed concentrations of foreign-born populations where unemployment ran double and triple the national average, where police had begun designating vulnerable areas, and where the violence had escalated to the point that Sweden, of all places, recorded among the highest gun homicide rates in Europe per capita.
Wow.
Something had to give. By 2022, the Tidö Agreement changed everything. A right
and they have gun laws there
of center coalition backed by the Sweden Democrats, the same party that had been politically untouchable for 2 decades, sat down and made a decision that would have been unthinkable a decade earlier. They would deliberately reduce asylum rights to the legal minimum allowed under EU and international law. The mission, openly stated, was to make Sweden unattractive to new arrivals. It worked. In 2024, preliminary asylum applications fell to 9,645.
Wow, look at that. No free money. You penalize them for coming, huh? Look how the numbers change.
A 23% drop from
Y'all
the previous
overstayed
year
your welcome.
and the lowest level since the mid-1980s.
Overstayed.
In 2025, the figure fell further to 6,000.
Look at that huge drop-off right there, right away. And then it got down to normal numbers over here.
1,737. But the numbers tell only half the story. The legal architecture behind them is what really shows the shift. A regulation that took effect in March of 2025 ended the so-called EBO system, where asylum seekers could choose their own accommodation. Authorities said it helped breed segregated parallel societies. Now, financial aid is conditional on living in state-run reception centers. Re-entry bans for rejected applicants extended from 1 to 5 years. The track change route, where rejected asylum seekers could quietly transition into work permits and stay anyway, abolished as of April 2025.
Good.
And the most striking move of all, the repatriation grant. The Swedish government had proposed raising it to 350,000 Swedish kroner per person, roughly 38,000 US dollars, to take effect in 2026, up from just 10,000 kroner per adult under the old system. A 35-fold increase. The math is simple. Sweden is now willing to write large checks to convince migrants to leave voluntarily rather than fight integration battles for the next 40 years. This is no longer the Sweden of 2015. But Sweden is just the opening act, because Denmark has gone further than any country in Europe.
We just saw
Under
this.
Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen and the Social Democrats, Denmark adopted what the government itself describes as a zero refugee policy. And the numbers back up the language. In 2024, Denmark granted asylum to just 864 people, the lowest figure in over 40 years, with the only exception being 2020, when COVID lockdowns sealed the borders. According to the British Home Office, Denmark's policies have reduced asylum claims to a 40-year low and resulted in the removal of 95% of those whose claims are rejected. 4 asylum claims per 10,000 people in 2024. In Britain, that figure was 16. The deterrent is working. And here's the part nobody outside Scandinavia really understands. This is being done by a center-left government, a social democratic prime minister. The same political tradition that built the Danish welfare state is now the architect of the most restrictive migration regime in the European Union. Fredriksen's argument,
because they were losing seats and they were going to lose their seats. That's why.
Delivered in interview after interview,
you got to start voting them out, and then they learn.
Is blunt. The Danish welfare model, she says, cannot survive uncontrolled migration. The poor pay the highest price for failed integration. Overwhelmed schools, gang violence, neighborhoods where state authority becomes secondary. In her own words to Newsweek in mid-2025, it's not a human right to enter Denmark and do a
and Trump's cutting off a lot of their money, so they have to make changes, or otherwise they're going to collapse. They know that.
Rape and stay.
Yep.
That is a sitting prime minister of a Nordic social democracy in 2025.
But that's normal.
But Fredriksen's framework
That's
goes
a good
deeper
thing to
than
say.
rhetoric. It rests on a doctrine the Danish system calls temporality. Under Danish law, refugee status is no longer treated as a path to permanent settlement. It is, by design, temporary, reviewable, revocable. The moment condition
100%, Marianne, 100%. And then he's going to talk about birth rates here eventually. When you cut down the money, the birth rates of these illegals goes down.
Conditions in a country of origin are deemed safe, residency can be withdrawn, even from people who have lived in Denmark for years.
Do you hear that? Their residency can be withdrawn.
Learned the language and built lives there. The clearest example,
so you better learn the language too,
came with Syria. After the fall of Bashar al-Assad in late 2024, Denmark moved to revoke the residency of Syrian refugees from areas the government classified as safe, including Damascus and Homs.
There's a lot of extremists in that area.
Some Danish Syrians began considering whether to return voluntarily, with the government dangling repatriation grants of around 38,000 US dollars per person.
That's what Trump was doing, getting them like $2,000 to go back. And it saves them money on all the deportation money, the courts and all that crap.
Ease the door open. For thousands of refugees in Denmark, this means living in a state of permanent uncertainty. Then there's the centerpiece, the 2018 Ghetto Package, officially titled One Denmark Without Parallel Societies. It targets neighborhoods where so-called non-Western immigrants and their descendants make up more than 50% of residents, and where crime rates are high, education levels are low, and incomes below the national average. Once an area is designated, the state can demolish social housing to change the demographic
It's incredible
mix.
that they've done
But the
this.
most controversial provision is what happens to children. Toddlers in these areas, starting at age 1, must attend Danish language and values-based daycare for at least 25 hours a week. If families...
Geez, they got to learn the language like you'd have to learn English here in America? Can you imagine doing that here? Trump's having an effect on all of them.
Don't comply, they lose their child benefits. And starting in 2025...
Uh-oh, you better not take away their freebies.
Refugees on benefits face a 37-hour weekly work obligation, including mandatory internships and language training. This is forced assimilation.
Yep.
I agree. And learning the language is one step toward that.
Backed by the full economic weight of the state. If Sweden is a U-turn, Denmark is a brick wall.
Yep.
But it gets even harder further south because Germany and France haven't just hardened their borders, they've gone after the ideological infrastructure inside
You
their
have
own
to do
cities. On November 5th of 2025,
No other option
German
left.
Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt banned the organization Muslim Interactive. Authorities raided 7 properties in Hamburg.
See, start banning organizations like that, and CARE is another one.
Before sunrise. 12 more in Berlin and Hesse. Assets seized, websites taken down. The group, founded in 2020, had built a slick social media presence with thousands of followers on TikTok.
You gotta have politicians with backbones, too.
And YouTube, and had drawn 1,000 supporters to a Hamburg demonstration in early 2024 where signs read, "Caliphate is the solution." Dobrindt was unapologetic. "We will respond with the full force of the law," he said, to anyone who aggressively calls for a caliphate on our streets.
Basically, they had enough of the BS.
Incites hatred against the state of Israel and Jews in an intolerable manner, and despises the rights of women and minorities. The Interior State Minister of Hamburg called it a blow against modern TikTok Islamism. This came just over a year after Berlin's previous interior minister had banned the Islamisches Zentrum Hamburg in July of 2024 over alleged ties to Iran's supreme leader and support for Hezbollah. The IZH, which operated the so-called Blue Mosque on...
That's not the only country, TZ. Many countries over there don't allow Christian ones. I have a friend who's in Indonesia who left being a Muslim, and I've only won about 1% is Christian there. And once they burn down a church, they won't let them build a new one. You can't even replace a church that's been burned down. So every now and then they keep burning down another church here and there.
The shores of the outer Ulster Lake had been under surveillance by German intelligence for years. Authorities seized evidence the group was operating, in their words, in a highly conspiratorial manner, using charitable fronts to funnel influence and ideology into German Muslim communities. 2 bands, 2 organizations dismantled, both targeting structures that German authorities concluded were trying to build, in the language of the Federal Ministry of the Interior, permanent enemies of the Constitution.
Yep, you cut that welfare, Colin, and a lot of them will start going back, and they'll definitely have a lot less kids.
This is the part that quietly redefined the German...
It's all the money they're handing out that's drawing them here. It's the biggest draw. It's the money.
Approach. The bans weren't reactions to specific acts of terrorism. They were preemptive, what some legal scholars now call pre-crime enforcement. German authorities are no longer waiting for radical organizations to commit violence. They're dismantling structures whose stated aims, by the government's reading, undermine the constitutional order itself. France took the same logic and pushed it into law. After the 2020 beheading of teacher Samuel Paty for showing a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad in class, the French state passed an anti-separatism law. It allows the dissolution of religious associations promoting separatism, the closure of radical mosques, and the stripping of citizenship from dual nationals convicted of terrorism.
France isn't by far not doing enough yet, though. Not even close.
Message embedded in Republican law is unambiguous. Loyalty to the Republic is non-negotiable. For a country built on the principle of laïcité, strict secular neutrality of the state, the post-Paty period was a constitutional reckoning. The government concluded that decades of accommodation had produced not integration, but a parallel infrastructure that the Republic could no longer afford to ignore. So it stopped accommodating. Even Ireland, historically among Europe's most open countries, has hardened its stance. After the November 2023 Dublin riots, the Irish government issued more than 2,000 deportation orders in 2024 and began closing what officials call the Belfast back door, the route by which migrants entered the United Kingdom first and then crossed...
I think it's Denmark, Colin. Denmark. That's coming up. He's going to talk about that.
...over the open border into Ireland. Eurobarometer data from autumn of 2025 captured just how fast...
And Poland doesn't have any at all. They're not letting anyone come into their country.
...fast public sentiment was moving. Concern about immigration in Ireland jumped 8 points in just 6 months, well above the EU average. So how did we get here? For years, parallel societies took root in places where integration stalled. Concerns mounted over segregated neighborhoods, cultural clashes, and the emergence of areas where state authority felt secondary. Then came Pati. Then came waves of attacks across European cities. Then came the slow, grinding realization that the welfare state and uncontrolled migration could not coexist on the same balance sheet. The political left, in particular, faced a choice: lose working-class voters to the far right, or adopt restrictionist policy and frame it through the language of social cohesion. Fredriksson chose the second option. So did Sweden's Tito coalition. So increasingly did Berlin and Paris.
It's because both of them were going to get voted out. That's why they were like this close to being voted out.
And here's where the story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. Because while Europe was building walls on the outside, something even bigger was breaking on the inside. If you're seeing this play out for the first time and you want to understand what's actually shifting in the global picture, hit subscribe. Because what comes next, public claims its population is 99.5% Muslim. The state was built on theocracy. The Constitution is religious.
Now he's going to talk about Iran here. And they're saying that they're Muslim because they have to be.
The educational system is religious. The legal code is religious. Public life is policed in some form or other by religious authority. Or at least that's the official picture. And yet, in June of 2024, the Group for Analyzing and Measuring Attitudes in Iran.
Now in Iran, you're seeing a lot of women going without the hijab and stuff like that because they can't button down on it. They can't clamp down on it like they want to.
Known as Gaman, surveyed 77,216 Iranians inside the country, weighted to represent the literate adult population. The findings were extraordinary. Roughly 70.
I did see that, TX, that she was bringing in Muslims in so she could win left-wing elections. Now it's gotten out of hand for them. And financially, that's killing them in Germany. So, and you had the rise of the AfD there. And they're trying to ban that party there. They're trying everything, and they're doing a lot of censorship, too.
80% of Iranians oppose the Constitution of the Islamic Republic.
They are.
20%
Exactly,
want it to remain.
I do a lot of videos on
89% favor a democratic system. 26% specifically want a secular republic. 21% want a constitutional monarchy. A small minority would even welcome a federal structure that decentralizes power away from Tehran entirely. And support for the principles of the 1979 revolution and the supreme leader, well, it's fallen to 11%, down from 18% in 2020.
Actually, it's lower than 11%, but some people worry if they answer it the other way, they're gonna be visited, let's say.
40% of respondents said regime change was a precondition for any meaningful reform. Again, regime change, a precondition for any meaningful reform. In the country that spent 4.5 decades exporting its ideology, training proxy militias, building Hezbollah, funding Hamas, propping up Assad, and lecturing the world about Islamic governance, the population behind closed doors has already moved on. Not partially, not marginally, decisively. The woman, life, freedom uprising that erupted after the death of Mahsa Amini in 2022 didn't just...
Did you see they arrested some of them, TZ, and they're in Germany, the AfD members? But they're still trying to stand up. And if there was an election right now, they would lose, you know? And so the other parties want to group together to keep them out of, you know, because they have their coalition government a lot of times.
Trigger street protests. It accelerated something that was already brewing. A generational rejection of theocratic rule, especially among the young, the educated, and the urban. Researchers studying Iranian internet usage in the years that followed documented a phenomenon clerics had no answer for. Tens of millions of Iranians began routinely using VPNs like Cybon to bypass state filters. They weren't just streaming Western entertainment.
And the other way we've been doing it with my Iranian friends is using something called Conduit. So it's a long explanation, but basically they're using your internet over here and using VPNs at both ends so they can't see it. And they use something or other on their end also. So it's been very hard for the regime. Now, I heard today that China is going to come in and help. They're helping the regime. So China's got the technology probably to find them. Anyone that's communicating with people over here now. We'll see how that goes as well.
They were reading apostate literature. They were watching debates between ex-Muslims and clerics on YouTube. They were participating in Persian.
Do you see that in Britain? They've got the most arrests for censorship in Britain.
Language telegram channels where the religious foundations of the regime were being dismantled post by post. The 2025 12-day war between Iran and Israel only deepened the rejection. The state attempted to rally the population around national defense. The population, in survey after survey, refused to confuse defending the country with defending.
Yeah, they want to arrest you for having a Christian flag, the Red Cross. The Red Cross.
The regime that runs it. Gamon's data isn't an outlier. It's been replicated across multiple surveys, conducted with the help of VPN networks like Siphon, that allows Iranians to bypass state censorship and answer honestly without fear of retaliation. Some critics have raised methodological questions about Gamon's polling, and those debates are real. But the broader pattern, youth disengagement.
Gee, I don't know what that gift thing is. What is that?
Engagement from clerical authority, plummeting mosque attendance, an underground apostate movement, the visible secular hunger of an entire generation is documented by independent journalists, academic researchers, and even Iran's own state media when they're caught off guard. The theocracy still controls the guns. It does not control the minds. And what's happening in Iran is not isolated. Even Saudi Arabia,
I don't charge anything for it.
The bedrock of Sunni religious authority is shifting. Under Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's Vision 23 reforms, the religious police have been curtailed. Cinemas have reopened. Music festivals draw tens of thousands. And in private surveys conducted with anonymity, independent researchers estimate that 15 to 25% of Saudi youth quietly identify as non-religious. That number was unthinkable a decade ago. Public rejection of the faith remains legally and socially dangerous in the kingdom, but the trend lines are unmistakable. Across the Muslim world, something deeper is at work, something the clerics never planned for: the internet. For 14 centuries, the transmission of Islamic knowledge was tightly controlled. Scholars, imams, state institutions, apostasy taboos. In 12 Muslim-majority countries, leaving the faith can still legally carry.
And that's why they try to censor the internet, is so the truth doesn't get out about really what Shia, especially Muslim, is. It's very extreme. Very, very extreme. I got something to show you about Afghanistan after this. You won't believe this next one.
The death penalty. Public doubt was not just spiritually dangerous, it was physically dangerous. Communities, families, and governments all reinforced the same boundary. You did not leave. You did not question. And if you did so quietly, alone, and at considerable personal risk. Smartphones changed all of it. What Christianity went through over centuries.
And here in Philadelphia, you got a bunch of new Muslims, converted ones, supposedly women especially, praying. They're converted in Philadelphia. It's insane, these white college women.
The Reformation, the Enlightenment, the long argument with reason and science is now confronting in decades. Compressed, accelerated, forced into the open by a technology that no clerical authority designed and none of them can fully control. The ex-Muslims of North American organization known as EXMNA has documented this shift in detail. According to their data, 78% of those who left Islam traced their first serious doubts to digital spaces.
Yep.
The subreddit r-ex-Muslim now has over 400,000 members.
To what?
Hadith contractions, historical critiques, scientific objections, debates over women's rights and slavery and apostasy, all of it now openly discussed in places that no government can fully censor. The driver of departures, according to EXMNA's own survey, 58% cited conflicts with human rights, particularly the treatment of women and LGBTQ individuals. 28% cited conflicts with science. Behind every one of those percentages is an individual story. A young woman in Tehran reading translated philosophy on her phone at 2 a.m. A college student in Cairo finding a comparative religion forum and never quite returned to certainty. A diaspora teenager in Berlin or London or Toronto raising questions her parents cannot answer, and finding online communities that not only validate the questions, but provide answers. This is the mechanism. It does not require open apostasy. It does not require a public break. It requires only a smartphone and a measure of curiosity. The exit, when it comes, often happens silently, over months, sometimes years, long before anyone in the family even realizes the religious commitment has dissolved. In the United States, Pew Research data shows that 24% of adults raised Muslim no longer identify with the faith as adults. Roughly 23% of current U.S. Muslims are converts.
That's a good start.
But the net impact of religious switching on Muslim population growth is essentially zero. Some studies suggest that 50 to 70% of American converts eventually leave the faith within a few years, citing weak community support.
Oh, I know so many people that are Minos, really. Muslim in name only, especially if they're Kurdish. They totally look great. They don't do the whole thing and all that kind of stuff, you know? So...
and cultural barriers. This is the part the takeover narrative...
Supremacy, actually. It's Arab supremacy.
The framework assumed religious identity was static, that a Muslim born in 2000 would be a Muslim in 2030, that demographic projections could simply multiply current populations forward. The framework underestimated the corrosive effect of unrestricted information access on rigid religious systems. The clerical monopoly on truth was not just challenged, it was outflanked. And then there's the demographic story itself. Yes, Islam is the fastest growing major religion in the world. Pew Research confirmed in their June 2025 update that the global Muslim population grew by 21% between 2010 and 2020, from 1.7 billion to 2 billion, twice the growth rate of the rest of the world. But here is what the headline number hides. That growth is concentrated in regions with low female education and high fertility rates, particularly sub-Saharan Africa, where the average Muslim woman has roughly 3.1 children. The moment women in those regions gain schooling, contraception, autonomy, fertility rates plummet toward national averages within 1 or 2.
See what it does after a few generations when we stop handing them money?
2 generations. We've watched this pattern play out repeatedly in country after country. Iran's own fertility rate has collapsed below replacement level. Tunisia and Turkey track close to European norms. Even in conservative Saudi Arabia, the average woman now has barely 2 children. The Islamic demographic boom is a moment in time, not a permanent feature of the faith. In Europe and North America, Muslim population growth is overwhelmingly driven by migration, not by sustained higher birth rates among second and third generation immigrants.
I can't remember if Goldie came on with me or almost came on with me. I was chatting with her a bit a long time ago when she first ran for office in Canada. This is like, I don't know, 12 years ago, maybe a little longer.
The pattern repeats everywhere it has been studied. Convergence, not divergence, by the third generation. Fertility rates among Muslim families in countries like the United Kingdom, France, and Germany are nearly indistinguishable from the national average. Even in the heart of the Asia-Pacific region, where most of the world's Muslims actually live, fertility rates are falling. Indonesia, the country with the largest Muslim population on earth, has seen its fertility rate decline by roughly half.
The Persians were invaded by the Arabs
over the last 40 years. The takeover demographic, the one that fueled 20 years of headlines and 100 YouTube channels, was a snapshot, not a destiny. It assumed conditions that are already starting to unravel. Strip away the fertility advantage, slow the migration pipeline, factor in the silent attrition through apostasy and disaffiliation, and the demographic curve flattens dramatically. The map the takeover narrative depended on is being rewritten in real time. So what do we actually have here? The West has woken up. Nations that once feared being labeled intolerant are now openly prioritizing cultural cohesion, welfare sustainability, and national identity. Sweden, Denmark, Germany, France, and Ireland have shown that even the most liberal societies can reverse course when the costs of failed integration become impossible to ignore. At the same time, the internal foundation of Islam is being eroded by the very technology that once seemed to empower its spread. Smartphones are doing what 14 centuries of debate never could, exposing contradictions, offering alternatives, and giving individuals the private space to question without immediate social destruction. The clerical monopoly on truth is broken. Islam is not disappearing. 2 billion people still hold the faith. Many do so deeply and seriously. That is not the question. The question is whether the era of unchallenged expansion, of demographic inevitability, and cultural dominance is over. The data says yes. The walls are up, the questions are being asked, and the silence that once protected the takeover narrative from scrutiny, that silence is gone.
Mm-hmm. I think the takeover was definitely real. I think it was definitely an option. It was definitely a direction the world could have head in. But the thing is, it seems like in many countries in Europe, they're waking up. They're saying, holy shit, this was a bad idea. Holy shit, they were right. Oh, those dirty Zionist Jews, what they were talking about, living under the threat of radical Islam for the last 78 years. Oh, they were actually fucking right about that. We had just forgotten what we went through in Europe via the Ottoman Empire. We forgot what happened when Arabs conquested and came in and massacred up until Hungary and Austria. We forgot. But this is what you guys needed to remember. It is what you needed to remember. It is what it is. Now the question is, and I always bring this question up, what will you actually do? Will you fight for your rights? Who of you will be involved? This doesn't have to be a movement that hates Islam. Doesn't have to be a movement that hates Muslims. Doesn't even have to be a movement that deports everyone. It needs to be a movement that fights for you, that safeguards, that understands who you are, what is great about you and your society, why you're the most toured and visited region on planet Earth, why so many people from every corner of the globe want to come be in you. Take that, process that, say, okay, we know what we are, own it, don't run from it, own it, and then safeguard and protect it. See you guys in the next one.
I thought it made a lot of good points and stuff on that. I mean, we still got to keep working because we got leftists like this, who's a congresswoman in Minnesota who wasn't Muslim, who's supposedly converting now, running for office. Watch her.
Assalamu alaikum. My name's Peggy Flanagan.
Oh, Minnesota knows
Peggy Flanagan. She's switching just to stay in power.
An extremist Democrat who served under failed Governor Tim Walz. Peggy champions the radical transgender agenda and wants to eliminate the use of fossil
transgender, and she's siding up with these Islamists.
Fuels. Peggy's endorsed by Minnesota's far-left Senator Tina Smith and is promising to work with Bernie Sanders to obstruct Donald Trump.
I have absolutely no doubt that Peggy is going to follow in Tina's footsteps.
Minnesotans know Peggy Flanagan. That's why they'll reject her this November.
Can you believe that? For transgender, and here she's doing all that. Anything for power, right?
Today, I feel a super sense of pride and joy because I came from Dearborn, Michigan, whose mayor is a Shia Muslim, to New York City, whose mayor is a Shia Muslim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
The Shiite ones are the worst ones.
We love this country. We love this country. And we love the freedom about this country. We're able to practice.
And she'll stab you in the back too, John.
We're able to commemorate and we're able to celebrate our religious occasions.
See how it's all men? 100% men?
And our obligations freely without anyone bothering us. Brothers and sisters, today a question has been put forward by many people. Victory doesn't mean we have more bunker busters than them. No, absolutely not. Victory means everyone in the world, about 8 billion human beings, 8 billion souls, are witnessing the truth. They're witnessing what's happening. They're seeing that tyrants are killing children.
All men.
Innocent women. Where? In their homes. Hitting hospitals.
Just like the Democrats, they use emotion.
Destroying schools and hospitals and city infrastructures. My dear brothers and sisters.
Stop putting the terrorists inside there.
Sisters, this is victory.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do here. You know? So, watch this. This is in Afghanistan. Don't tell me these people aren't pedophiles. This is Afghanistan. Now watch close. This is a young little boy. Look, maybe I'll rewind it a little bit. Watch what they're doing to this young little boy. Don't tell me they're not pedophiles. What you think of that? Unbelievable. You ask me.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are currently getting numerous reports right this very moment suggesting that President Trump is on the cusp of giving the order to launch the single largest attack against the Iranian regime of all time. We are talking doomsday for the Iranian regime. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and break it all down. First off, exclusive reporting coming out this morning. President Trump told me, that is Barack Ravid, journalist, that he is, quote, close to a decision on a massive attack against Iran, but he stressed that he has not made his final determination. Some extra information here. President Trump says he is close to a massive attack decision. The details include this. President Trump says, quote, we are all set and ready for it regarding the attack, which he has been hinting at for weeks. President Trump says this attack would be, quote, bigger than ever before. And you know, that's a big statement because we have already been hitting the Iranian regime pretty damn hard. We already have hit them very hard in the past. Trump says this would be even bigger. We're ready to make it happen. President Trump said Israel, quote, would join in.
And what they're fighting for is to keep the nuke so they can kill us. That's what they're fighting for. This would be over if they get rid of the nuke.
2 minutes if I ask them to, but added that we won't need anybody. Perhaps we won't even be asking Israel for help, but they would if we made the request. Trump says, pertaining to the Iranian regime, Trump says they haven't received enough pain yet. Wow, that is a statement. Trump says, you know what? Maybe the Iranian regime, maybe they need to receive a little bit more pain. Now, as President Trump says all of this morning, we got word that last night was the 12th night in a row that the United States has absolutely battered and bombarded the Iranian regime, or whatever the hell is left of it. Take a listen to this report.
U.S. forces launched a 12th straight night of strikes against Iran overnight. According to CENTCOM, these strikes once again targeted Iran's ability to strike vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM released a statement saying more than 50,000 U.S. service members are operating across the Middle East and remain highly vigilant, focused, lethal, and ready. This does follow a new warning from President Trump on Wednesday when he posted to Truth Social saying from this point forward, anytime the Islamic Republic of Iran shoots at a ship in the Strait of Hormuz, whether it be by missile, rocket, drone, or any other device or weapon, the United States will bomb and destroy one bridge or power plant, including those located next to or in the capital city of Tehran.
You guys have heard of the phrase tit for tat. If you go tit, I go tat. Trump has now adopted the strategy of if you go tit, I go tat, 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 tat. Okay? Things are escalating here, to say the least.
No vessels were attacked in the Strait overnight. At least one Saudi-owned oil tanker was targeted in the Red Sea by Houthi forces in Yemen. President Trump spoke yesterday from Georgia about the ongoing conflict.
And Saudi's hitting them tomorrow or today, later today.
And the possibility of negotiations.
They're getting hit so hard, and they want to make a deal. But I say they're not ready to make a deal. Because every time they make a deal, they want to change it and everything. They're not ready. They'll be ready very soon. And this is despite this. It's going on.
Overnight, Iran launched new attacks against U.S. bases in Kuwait and Bahrain, with additional attacks expected today. Secretary of State Marco Rubio indicated that Iran will continue to pay a heavy price for these attacks.
Their foreign minister, who the other day say or something about their policy is an eye for an eye. The president's policy is a head for an eye.
Ooh.
I mean, honestly, that's what it's going to be. I mean, they will pay a very heavy price. Okay, these people who are calling us every day, begging, let's do a deal. They send us messages through other countries, third countries.
Here in Israel, the assessment is the conflict could expand in the days ahead. According to initial reports, some cities have started to open public bomb shelters in preparation for the possibility of incoming Iranian missile fire.
So the Israelis, they are expecting sort of an all-out war, a total missile drone exchange again, as we saw.
TZ, from what I've heard, the Saudi troops, you don't want them to come into your area because they're very ruthless. They'll hurt you. Not necessarily that they're great fighters, but if they catch you, you don't want to be caught for them. You'd rather die because they They don't treat you very good.
Last a couple months ago. Now, speaking of Marco Rubio, we spoke about all of this even more earlier this morning. He said this already. He said, right now, the Iranian foreign minister, he said their policy inside of Iran is eye for an eye. Trump's policy, however, is a head for an eye. Okay.
Iran is begging us, okay, both directly and indirectly. Let's do a deal. Let's talk. Iran is begging every day. The problem with Iran is every time they make a deal, the people that are in charge there, they've
had months and months to give up their nukes. They are desperate to hit the world with them.
either break it or they want to change it. So it looks like they're not ready to make a deal. So they're going to continue to pay a price. And every night the price gets higher and higher and higher. And that's what's happening now. And until maybe in a few days, they'll be ready to make a deal once they realize that this is not a winning proposition for them.
No.
And that's what the president is outlining. The idea that this is going to continue, it's not going to continue this way. The price will continue to get higher every single night until they come to their senses. Right now, apparently they haven't come to their senses. And so the president doesn't see a lot of utility in responding to their overtures at this point, because frankly, Iran is clearly not ready to make a deal, at least not one they're willing to live by.
And you know what? It might just end up being the case that the Iranian regime, frankly, doesn't have any senses. We say, well, we might have to bomb them until they come to their senses. We've already done it for 12 days. Let's make it 24. Let's make it 50 days of sensible sense.
Well, it'd already be over if they hadn't stopped the first time by now, because China and Russia were rearming them.
Inducing bombing. Well, they might just not have any senses. Who's to say? Now, we have another update here. Check this out. Iran sent senior IRGC commanders, military advisors, missile and drone components, and gold, physical gold, to Yemen, the country of Yemen, on a flight on July 13th. 4 individual sources have now told Reuters. The deployment was aimed at strengthening the Houthi pirates, the Houthi operations, and their ability to threaten Red Sea shipping. So the Iranian regime, they desperately want the Houthis to get involved and shut down the Red Sea. They've tried to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. They want a total shutdown to try to apply more pressure and get some leverage on the board against President.
I misspell all the time because I can't spell to start with, and then sometimes I'll hit 2 keys at once and that kind of stuff.
Trump in the United States. So they're trying to prop up the Houthis. Well, President Trump issued a statement this morning pertaining to these Houthi pirates. He says this, and I quote, "A year ago, the United States of America attacked very powerfully the Houthis for their interference with commerce and trade by shooting at ships. Since that time, and during our conflict with Iran, they have acted very responsibly. Unfortunately, now they are starting up again, shooting at 2 Saudi Arabian ships just last night. Please let this Truth Social post serve to represent that if they do this again, the United States will hold Iran responsible, in that the Houthis are a surrogate and or proxy force of Iran. And major military punishment will be inflicted upon Iran and, of course, the Houthis themselves, who I am very disappointed with in that they have until now acted very professionally and smart. Thank you for your attention to this matter." So President Trump, he comes out here almost mockingly so, almost mocking the Houthis. He said, listen, Houthis, we had to smack you back in your place about a year ago, and smack them we did, very powerfully so. Since then, they've been quiet as a barn mouse. Even during all of this entire conflict against the Iranian regime, everybody's involved. The Houthis have been like, I don't want that heat. I don't want it again. We already got blown up last summer. Well, they made a big mistake. Last night, the Iranian regime, 10 days ago, sent a flight down to Yemen and rearmed and resupplied the Houthis, probably tried to convince them to get involved. Seems like last night they officially did. They launched some rockets or drones or missiles at some Saudi Arabian ships in the Red Sea. Trump says big mistake, because here's the deal. If you do this again, not only are we going to be wiping the Houthis off of the face of the map, as we did a year ago, they didn't like that so much last time, but also because the Houthis are a propped up proxy force of the Iranian regime, and that's true, everybody knows it, we're going to be blowing up the Iranian regime every time the Houthis do something bad. So you better reassess your strategy here, IRGC. Now, as all of this is making waves, as everybody's talking about all of these big developments in the Middle East, President Trump says we are on the cusp of hitting them harder than we have ever hit them before. We get this information right now, in fact, right this very moment, for the last several hours. In fact, this has been going on all morning.
I want the regime to go down, then the nukes will never come back. You know, the new people coming in wouldn't be interested in that period.
Morning. There is a massive United States Air Force air bridge to the Middle East taking place, flying all the way across Europe, down into the Middle East. So, and these are U.S. Air Force aircraft, Strato tankers. These are carrier planes, resupply, refuel. God knows what they are loaded with. Could be troops, could be tanks, could be missiles, could be bombs, could be rations, could be munitions. Who the hell knows? But we know something, as a matter of fact. The United States, we're shipping a whole hell of a lot of something into the Middle East right now. And this is happening at the same exact time that President Trump is hinting at, I mean, not even hinting, he's just literally publicly saying it. We're about to hit them harder than we have ever hit them before. Every time they attack a civilian vessel, anytime the Iranians or the Houthis do anything, we're going to hit the Houthis, we're going to hit the Iranians harder than they've ever been hit before. What's more, we're going to be blowing up bridges and power plants. It's all out. This is what's happening. So Trump is saying one thing. The military movements are confirming what he is saying. Folks, I'll tell you what, whatever happens next, you can bet your sweet behind that President Trump is going to keep on putting America first.
We really need the regime out of power. They've been at war with us for almost 48 years, ever since Carter. Okay, the programming note. I should be on tomorrow at 8 p.m., but it's possible I won't. I got to go to my great niece's graduation. So hopefully I should be done and get home by 8 and be able to do it 8 p.m. Eastern. This is these Shia Muslims. There's some in Iraq, and they did this thing with the cutouts of all the dead leaders from Iran. Oh, watch this whole line of them. They're totally on their side, some of them in Iraq. And this is in the Baghdad area. Former Saddam Hussein supporters. See, they're honoring all these dead sickos. They're Shia. They're all right. This was on the Senate floor.
Montana. Thank you, Mr. President.
From Montana.
Yesterday, we saw the President of the United States and many others at Dover Air Force.
Well, I should be home just in case. Just a warning.
Space, presiding over a ceremony that is very sacred to those of us who served, and that is a dignified return of remains from the war zone. And that process happens beginning in the war zone through Dover to the hometown of our fallen heroes. I participated in many of those ceremonies myself, to include carrying friends of mine off the plane. One of those is on this bracelet. He was cut in half by an Iranian EFP. This regime that we are fighting does not care about our partisan politics. They don't care who you voted for, who you pray to, or where you live. They want to kill all of us. And they don't just say it, they actually do it. And they've been doing it for 47 years. This is a war of choice. The Democrats are correct. It's a war of choice that was begun by a radical, lunatic band of terrorists that took over a beautiful nation 47 years ago. Took it over with brutality, force, and savagery. And the second they took it over, they didn't free their people. They didn't unleash the largest oil reserves in the world to build schools and bridges. They took it over to murder their own people and to spread their disgusting ideology across the world. And that is exactly what they have been doing. They don't just say it and talk about it. You don't have to believe what they say. You can simply watch what they've done. They have attacked families, women, children, innocent people. They don't just attack them and kill them. They rape them. They skin them alive on camera. They celebrate it. They honor those people who do disgusting things that we would put in jail for the rest of their lives in this country. And they do it for fun, and they pay them money to do it, and they're heroes to that nation. They've done it to friends of mine. They've done it to families who've been in this chamber. And the fact that we sit here and listen to elected officials of this country defend these lunatics who want us all dead. They want all of you dead. They want all of us dead. They don't want us to disappear with the snap of a finger. They want us to be raped, burned alive, and cut into pieces. Watch the video from October 7th. That's what they want to happen from Maine to San Diego, from Seattle to Miami. They want this country turned into a burning husk of its former self. And you don't have to theorize that. That's what they do. From the 1983 barracks bombing, where 280 Marines were vaporized in the morning, from USS Cole to the Achille Laurel to every terrorist attack, from the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. These are not humanitarian freedom organizations. They are death-dealing cults, and they want all of us to die brutal deaths. William Buckley was abducted in 1985, an American military officer. He was skinned alive on camera by the Iranians. American prisoners of war who were captured. They were never called prisoners of war because they were captured by lunatic terrorists, so they were not subject to the Geneva Convention. They were captured and murdered, power drills through their brains. This is in Iraq. These are families that have dealt with this, and they've never gotten a single dime. These families have never gotten restitution, and not a single president has ever stood up to them. Love Donald Trump or hate him, love his policies, hate ICE, love ICE, whatever. There's never been a single president who has stood up to Iran and hit back. For 47 years, our troops and our families have been absorbing attack after attack after attack all over the world. And their radical ideology does not stop at the Persian Gulf. It doesn't stop at Tel Aviv. They want to do this everywhere. It's a global radical ideology. And we've been fighting it for half a century. We didn't start this war. We did not, but we will finish it. And forever wars are not popular with anybody these days. Both sides of that, I love to attack our forever wars. And I can promise you, being someone overseas wearing the uniform, when you're fighting for your country, you don't care what party's in office, but you're fighting to defend your country. And you turn on the news and see your elected officials stabbing you in the back, telling you that you're failing, that you've failed every goal of the war, is what I just heard. Last time I checked, we've wiped these bastards out. An occasional missile strike and boats in the straits, that's not military strength. Those are the flailings of a failing empire. Those are the flailings of a nation in collapse because they deserve it. So I encourage our colleagues on both sides of the aisle, whatever's politically convenient, whatever plays well on Twitter or Facebook, think about the people who are deployed right now, standing on that wall with a loaded weapon, who have volunteered to defend our country and our way of life. Because they are there defending us in a just war. Because we did not start a war with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They started it with us 47 years ago, and their attacks have gone unanswered for half a century. It's time to fix this problem and make sure another generation of Americans does not have to fight this murderous, savage adversary. Thank you, Mr. President.
Sorry, I was typing and I wanted to keep my mute on there. Where was I going from there? Okay, did that one.
I look at Mayor Mamdani and I'm reminded of the Ayatollah. He uses flowery words. He makes promises of free this, free that. He's a good orator, and he's tricking the people.
I got about 4 more short clips.
Into voting for him. You know, I too promised free ice cream Fridays when I was running for 4th grade student body president. Offering free things is never free. What I also want to inform your viewers, Liz, is Mayor Mamdani is a 12er Shia, which is the same sect of Islam as the IRGC. So
yeah, that name's escaping me too in Libya too. When Reagan was in, they did a hit near there that made him push the extremists out. That name's going to come to me after I'm done live. Look at the guy from Libya. There, I know exactly who you're talking about, John.
When he speaks, against the Jews, against Israel, he is a puppet.
Gaddafi in Libya. He was a bad guy, but he got straightened out with throwing a few bombs near his house, and then he got rid of the extremist, and we shouldn't have gone and taken him out later, because it's a lot worse now.
He is basically moving forward the propaganda of the same type of Islam as the IRGC. Secondly, the ICC court, this criminal claim against Israel's war crimes and Netanyahu was brought by South Africa. A lot of people don't know that the South African government was in dire straits and in a ton of debt and hadn't paid their government workers in months. Iran paid off those debts in exchange for South Africa bringing these allegations against Israel and Netanyahu. Again, Iran is a thread through all of this.
Iran's the one that's funding all the terrorists. That's the problem.
This is happening in Michigan and nobody's talking about it.
Controversial vote by Hamtramck City Council tonight will allow the religious sacrifice of certain animals under strict conditions.
It is often practiced among Muslims during the holiday season known as Eid, or breaking of the fast.
It's the best compromise. We don't want to restrict religious freedoms, and we don't want to keep it random without regulation.
Animal sacrifice. Is this America? I mean, last that I checked, this is the United States.
Yeah, they got to sacrifice some of them in certain ways in order to eat the meat, too. It's a cruel way, too.
It's of America. When
like cutting their throats and stuff.
Of this being allowed here in our communities.
Actually, I believe a lot of Jewish believe in that crap, too. I'm not for it. I don't think they do it in public like they do in the Muslim countries, but still.
and nobody's talking about it? How is this even being considered? Why is no one headlining this?
That's why their culture doesn't fit with ours.
All over the news. This is not the Middle East. This is not some third world country. This is not the place where these individuals came from. I understand religious freedoms, but when it comes to doing what they want to do to these animals, where do we cross the line? They have an entire Muslim committee and community that is making these rules out in Michigan. And let me guess, I'm going to be labeled as racist because I'm bringing it to people's attention? Get out of here.
If you're in England, right, Colin? Yeah, they probably put you in jail for mentioning it.
Zohar Mamdani took his oath on the Quran, the book of hate. They want to erase your history so they can replace it with theirs. They want to take down your statues, rename your streets, and put up their crescents. They want you to be a stranger in your own land of birth. They want you to apologize for being American. The 7 lights, unfortunately, almost have all gone out in Europe. And I'm sure you don't want it to happen in America too. But do not think that you are safe. You already had 9/11. The United States today are the next on the menu of the crocodile. Islam has already arrived on your shores, from the Atlantic to the Pacific. The lights of freedom, safety, identity, prosperity, integrity, and justice are...
That means I better like them, TC, if the liberals hate them.
...under attack here too. Look at Minnesota, where Somalis are taken over and have elected Ilhan Omar to the US Congress. She sneers at the country that gave her refuge and a passport and brags about advancing a Somalia interest in Congress. Look at Dearborn, Michigan, the first Islamic majority city in the US, where Mayor Abdullah Hammoud told a non-Islamic citizen of a city who objected to naming a street in honor of a jihadist.
There's no defense, so you go to jail no matter what.
He said to him, "You are an Islamophobe. Move out of here." Look at New York City, where the newly elected mayor, Zohar Mamdani...
I know they put Tommy Robinson in jail like 4 times or something like that, haven't they, Colin?
...took his oath on the Quran, the book of hate. He refuses even to condemn the jihadist phrase globalize the intifada and wants to take down the statue of Christopher Columbus. My friends, they want to erase your history so they can replace it with theirs. They want to take down your statues, rename your streets, and put up their crescents.
That's exactly what they're doing, too.
They want you to be a stranger in your own land of birth. They want you to apologize for being American. And I ask you, are you going to do that?
Yeah, they do TZ. They do a lot of that, and I do have someone that used to help me catch a lot of these people, and she speaks 13 languages, and she can do that whole stuff like it's coming from the back of your throat crap, you know. She was Kurdish. She used to be a translator. Anyways, that does sound pretty bad. All right, I'm going to end with this one about the Democratic Socialists here in America. This is their actual platform. They keep changing it and making it worse, actually. Watch this.
Fox News has obtained documents from the Democratic Socialists of America revealing the group's updated platform, which is even...
And this is who's taken over the Democratic Party, as if they weren't far left enough already.
...more radical than before. Now, they plan to release this next week. Listen to this. The United States Senate eliminated, gone. The president and the Supreme Court replaced. The Department of War defunded. All immigrants given amnesty. That is the plan. Now, who is...
Did you hear that? All immigrants amnesty? They're probably going to get free money, too. Of course, you're going to have to pay for it.
...driving this machine? Well, they say it's the people. But a new survey shows those people overwhelmingly identify as anarchists and Marxists. Yet the media is running cover for the group. The Washington Post is claiming Republicans are falsely labeling them as communist. And other members in the media are mocking the idea of the Red Scare.
One of the things I found very interesting is this pivot the president has made to communism, coming after the commies.
This is not Gulag socialism. This is not the Soviet Union socialism.
Socialism, much less democratic socialism, is not communism.
It does sound like
journalists, so-called, spent the same amount of time covering the DSA as they did a pool that nobody swims in.
You know what they believe in? They believe by any means necessary. And they chant that, by any means necessary to take power.
You would find a web of caucuses within the group that explicitly push communism. Now, the Marxist...
That's why election law, like the SAFE Act and all that, is so important.
Unity Group, for example, says they are rallying thousands of Marxists in the DSA around a shared vision of the future. And they plan to achieve that future by adopting what they call a minimum-maximum program. Quote, the minimum program refers to the party's comprehensive platform, the policies that it will immediately implement upon taking power, and the maximum program refers to the results of this process, a world free of the market, borders, classes, and all other oppressive structures that...
You don't have a country if you don't have borders. What the hell are they talking about? They want one world government then.
...exist under capitalism. In a word, communism. They also proudly put on their website that they want to overthrow our Constitution. Another faction is a revolutionary Marxist caucus called...
Yeah, I don't know how they read it.
...Reform and Revolution. They draw influence from communist leaders like Karl Marx, Vladimir Lenin, and Leon Trotsky. And on their website, they promise the Communist Manifesto, which they promote. There also is the Liberation Caucus. They push Maoism, saying this: Comrade Mao's call to combat liberalism must be heeded and taken seriously. Otherwise, opportunist and revisionist trends will arise and rot the soul of the organization. And they go on to say we are unequivocally anti-imperialist. Communists in the imperial core have as our main duty the destruction of the imperialist system. And finally, there's also the Red Star Caucus, which describes itself as the Marxist-Leninist faction of the Democratic Socialists of America. Their stated goal to abolish capitalism and ultimately to achieve communism. They go on to say they are striving to weaken and
like they haven't killed enough millions of people already.
Ultimately dismantle the U.S. empire. Red Star also notes that nearly half of the DSA's National Political Committee identifies as communist. That's what's hiding inside the belly of the beast. In their own words, we just showed you communism. Now listen to how some of their members speak about America.
U.S. imperialism is not a thing that can be reformed away. It has to be overthrown through revolutionary struggle.
To build a mass movement that can use the leverage of workers to hit the kill switch on American imperialism here.
So when do Democrats
Is it just me, or both those look like trans?
and members of the media start calling them out for this rhetoric after the DSA takes their voters and builds their own rival party?
Yep. I lied. I'm going to end with this little tiny short funny thing. Here's a little humor for you. It's only 14 seconds.
You know what? I've actually had enough of this. Tesla bot, activate.
Okay, everyone. Islam and trans teams. Yeah, they're on the same team until they take over. That's what happened in Iran. Is once they took over, they killed the Marxists and this and that. All right, everyone. Thanks for stopping in and all that. God bless. I should be on at 8 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, unless I get hung up. Okay.